Hello everyone, welcome to my channel, The Conscious Tarot Club. Today I really wanted to do a channeled reading for the collective all around the post new moon in Cancer energy. And I also just wanted to share my own experience of the new moon, and I'd love to hear about yours. I did a video, my last one was about the new moon in Cancer and how it might be bringing up quite a lot of difficult emotions, it might be triggering certain traumas, there might be some quite deep, dark feelings coming up to the surface. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Cancer rules the house that sits right at the bottom of our chart. So it really represents the kind of cave, our inner cave, and it represents the kind of darkest point of the year energetically, not in kind of a scary, creepy way, but more as in this is the time where we go inwards the most. And with it being dark moon as well, that sense of looking inwards was really amplified. And so, we may have felt some really challenging or intense emotions come up, and I know for myself that was definitely the case. Even though I was doing a lot of grounding practices throughout the week, because every time there is a new moon, I tend to experience quite intense emotions around it, quite intense energy. I find myself needing to sleep like a lot more than usual. My energy levels completely drop off a cliff, and my ability to feel grounded becomes more challenging. I feel a little bit lost in the dark, like I'm sort of floating around in space a little bit. And that means my relationships get affected. I become a bit more unmoored. My communication isn't very strong. And that kind of has a lot of repercussions on the world and my dynamics with people. But anyway, with this new moon in Cancer, I definitely experienced a lot of old traumas coming up, especially around past relationships, around experiences of abuse, experiences of feeling undervalued, not cherished, feeling isolated, remembering times in my life where I had felt extremely isolated and alone and helpless and vulnerable and like a victim. And with this kind of energy of Cancer in the dark moon, it was very difficult to kind of sit with that in a grounded state and not start to project it out onto the world. So that was really, really challenging. And, for anyone else that may have experienced some trauma coming up or some memories coming up that were really, really challenging and difficult to work through, you're not alone. It was very much my experience over the weekend as well. And, I found myself crying a lot. I found myself kind of yo-yoing between emotions. It was almost like I'd just become quite unmoored in a way. And, I find that happens with many new moons actually, especially kind of strong energies like eclipses. And so much of it is about accepting that ride. It's about accepting the process that we need to go through. It's about accepting the feelings that come up and not pushing against them or feeling ashamed about it. And a really important part of that process, I think, is coming out of that new moon energy as we are now, and really reflecting on what happened and evaluating what happened and giving yourself a lot of space and time to just recuperate your energy, to restore your energy. And my feeling is with this new moon especially that just went, I found myself cleaning all morning, cleaning the space, wiping all the surfaces, just cleaning stuff. And then I went and took a long bath, and I don't usually do that during the day, but I felt a need to take a bath and just let all of that energy kind of wash off of me. So cleansing in some way might be important for you if you have gone through kind of a very rocky, emotional ride this weekend. Cleaning, and I felt a need to kind of just sit with myself today and be on my own and do a lot of yoga, just take things really slow. Okay, so with that being said, let's do a reading together to look at what's coming for today, and in light of kind of this post new moon in Cancer energy. All right. Okay, so we've got Justice reversed. So for me, this is really speaking about possible imbalances that we may still be feeling. Justice this way around is all about balance, right? It's about scales. It's about things feeling fair on a level playing field, and it may not feel like that right now for you, particularly in your relationships. If you're feeling a sense of injustice in a particular relationship, if you're feeling that your voice hasn't necessarily been heard, you feeling that you haven't been appreciated in a way that you wanted to be appreciated, or maybe your point of view hasn't necessarily been acknowledged, I think today is a good day to really reflect upon why that's happening, where you might be able to communicate more constructively. I found for me personally, I woke up with this feeling that I wasn't being heard or acknowledged in a relationship. And I had to sort of take a step back and think, okay, how can I try and communicate this differently in a way that's going to be more constructive? Because I've brought it up before and it's always ended up being quite destructive. The other person has felt blamed or confronted. How can I try to alleviate this sense of injustice that lives in me, while not ending up just passing that injustice on to someone else, but actually transforming it? And for me, that was learning to communicate in a different way. So instead of speaking it, I wrote it down and I sent it to them in a message. And by writing it down, I could, consider my words more carefully. I could start to center my experience instead of saying, you did this and you did that. I could start to try and express my anger and my sense of injustice without it necessarily needing for me to kind of pass the responsibility on to them, but to try to get them to acknowledge that we both had a part to play in that, right? So yeah, that's kind of what this energy is bringing up for me, especially if, over the weekend and the new moon, you experienced some conflicts in your relationships. Now is a time to start really taking a step back, actually. That's what this card is all about. Taking a step back and reflecting on any feeling of injustice that's living within you. And on the flip side, it's also a case of not just ignoring it, right? So many of us, we just want to avoid conflict. We want to just brush things over or sweep them under the rug and say, oh, it's fine, I can just deal with it, it's not a problem. I do feel kind of angry about it, but my anger's just not really important. I don't need to communicate this. And actually, what that does is it builds a resentment. It's an even more destructive energy in the end. So yeah, just reflect on that. Are there any feelings of injustice living inside of you, and how can you start to transform that? Okay, let's look at the next card together. Okay, the High Priestess reversed. I always feel like the High Priestess in any reading, whether reversed or upright, is a really encouraging sign, because what she's really here to tell us is that if there is any feeling in your body, like any sense of injustice or anger or misalignment or imbalance, which we collectively definitely went through this weekend, actually the first point of call will be your body, to check in with your body. You know, if you don't know what you're feeling, the only way to start to figure that out is to actually go into your body. And there are so many ways that you can start to do that, to connect back into your body. You know, meditation is one. You know, even if it's just for a few minutes, close your eyes, feel your body, concentrate on your breath, feel the air coming in and out, and just be in there. Start to kind of just explore your body as a landscape. Doing yoga can also really help to just notice any tension that might be living in your body. I did a session of yoga yesterday where I ended up just crying for most of it, you know, because I could feel into my stomach, and I could feel that there was a lot of pain and tension there, and it needed a release. But the only way I could begin to release that tension, any anger that was living there, was by checking in with it. So this card is really saying to check in with our body, because our body has this intelligence that we often take for granted, we don't really check in with. But actually our body can be so much more intelligent than our minds, and it can tell us so much about our state of being and about how we should live when we do check in with our bodies, and even begin to have a conversation with our bodies, to understand where the tension is in our body, where the trauma is lodged in our body. Okay, so that's the High Priestess reversed, and then we have the Two of Swords reversed as our final card. So for me, that's really mirroring justice, and you can kind of see similarity in these two images. I think this one is really talking about, once we've located that sense of injustice or anger or any feelings of misalignment that may be happening, that we need to make some decisions about what we want to do about it. Start taking some aligned action, right? What can we start to do? How can we make decisions around any action that we need to take to help resolve some of that unexpressed conflict? Do we need to reach out to someone to let them know what we're feeling? And we might have been avoiding it because we didn't want to bring up any conflict. We didn't want to bring up difficult emotions. We didn't want to make things more unpleasant. But actually, by not taking that action, by not communicating our needs or our feelings, those feelings are becoming internalized and trapped in our own bodies. So that's kind of really what I'm seeing for this energy for today. It's a really it's quite a heavy energy, I think. It's going to get lighter over the next few days, I think, but now really is a time to reflect on what's happened over the weekend, to think about your relationships, to think about what's being left unexpressed, and where you might need to actually express something, risk something being ruptured, risk something being temporarily brought down in a relationship in order to help yourselves repair and heal. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow.